Take a shot for every time I've said that exact line to open up a show, and I swear you will be tipsy, and it's not even noon yet. But please, 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 please do not get carried on me. Just please. The sun's shining and peeking over the clouds. Temps this morning frothing between about the mid to high 60s into low 70s. The Purdue Boilermakers chugging over to the West Coast to take on the Texas Longhorns out in San Jose, California for the Sweet 16 here. Right from home at Ball State. Ball State introduced Chris Kapko as the men's basketball head coach just the other day. Over on the other side, Indy, still the Crossroads State. Butler hired Ronald Norwood to be the successor of Thad Matta. Norwood, a member of the Bulldogs' 2 championship runs in 2010 and 2011, as well as former Pacers assistant coach from 21 to 23. And all this spirit about, the men's tournaments and Purdue going all the way, Indiana being weak and not taking the NIT Invitational, and, Butler's got a new coach. I guess some teams prosper and some teams decide to hold themselves back. The Pacers, they decided to chime in and grow the flowers as Pascal Siakam showered the game-winning block against Paolo Banchero and the Orlando Magic on Monday night to give the Pacers their first win before All-Star break, and that was about, 16 games ago. Better days ahead, and of course an even better hour ahead, because you are tuning in to the Crossroads Playbook live here on 91.3 WCRD, always better radio. I'm Jake Fessmeyer. Pleasure to be here for the March finale. Even more pleasure to you for you lending me your ears until noon. Per usual, it's routine, it's part of the script. If you're wanting to interact in chat live during the show, please give me your take. Give me your opinion. Say something, man. Come on. Feed into the story. Feed into the drama. The RadioFX app is at the touch of your finger. Go to the App Store or Google Play Store, search RadioFX, RADIOFX on the tab. Download, sign up, search Ball State University on the search bar. Click on WCRD, go, and then, of course, you will see the text message icon on the wheel. Congrats. You can use your voice. Now, another little special opportunity. I actually started this a couple weeks ago. The 6-man. If you're wanting to be featured on the Crossroads Playbook, I advise checking out and giving a follow on TikTok at jake.fessmeyer. That is JAKE.FESMIRE. Fessmeyer, not Fesmere, not Fesquire, not Fesmia. Right, Fessmeyer. Where I post show clips, bonus content, and even a couple of questionnaires designed to hear from you, the people. This feature aligns with the 6-man segment, of course, to round off the show at the very end before I preview Ball State athletics either tonight, the next day, or for the weekend. So if you're wanting to express yourself about what is hot in the NBA, such as the MVP race, I recommend keeping in touch on the talk at jake.fessmeyer. That is JAKE.FESMIRE. Of course, today's full show episode will be uploaded to Spotify at the Crossroads Playbook by 11:59 p.m. And I'm trying a little something new. Trying out YouTube with my name, Jake Fessmeyer. Again, Fessmeyer, not Fesmere, not Fesquire, not Fesmeyer. Fessmeyer, F-E-S-M-I-R-E. So if you insist on wanting to watch the, not really a vodcast version, kind of, the show, it's just me with a text bracket, I guess. Look at the beautiful studio background. Just walking down a different avenue and raising the stock of the show. Speaking of stocks, stock Pacers basketball. We've expressed, we've gloated, we've praised, Darren Peterson, we've praised AJ DeBonsa, we even threw in, a little bit of Caleb Wilson in there. What about Cam Boozer stock? Tweet from Jake Fisher. The Pacers would reportedly consider drafting Cam Boozer, which, I'm going to break the quote here for a minute. I'll believe it when I see it. Would reportedly consider drafting Cam Boozer number 1. No one in the NBA that I've consulted projects any sort of dramatic draft night fall for either Peterson or Boozer. When it comes to Boozer, in fact, there is a sentiment among some rival teams that the Duke star would be Indiana's preferred selection, even if the Pacers were to come away with the number 1 overall pick, because of his potential fit alongside Pascal Siakam and newly acquired Ivica Zubac. So, Folks, I'm going to sound like a broken vinyl record here for just a minute. Consider this a tangent or not. If this franchise lands that first pick in this, it's going to be historic. We have never seen a draft class this deep and this talented and this skilled since 2003. Somebody can maybe prove me wrong on that. But there has not been a draft class so well discussed, so analyzed since maybe 20 years ago. So historic, so renowned. There's many different avenues and landmarks to think about selecting to bring to your team. You know, you can take a drive down Peterson Parkway, Boozer Boulevard, Caleb Wilson Way. I'm trying on my GPS. I'm setting the route. Okay, I'm trying to change it. But it calculates taking the Bonza Drive. And I'm trying to fix it. You know, it just won't, it will not recalculate. Taking Boozer Boulevard sober surely would not leave a mark or definitely would not make a mistake. But the Bonza Drive, you know, you're talking smooth roads, no potholes, maybe the occasional log jam of traffic, like, you know, maybe wanted to keep the ball to himself at times, which, I mean, if you have such raw talent like AJ DeBonza, you know, it's not really too shabby for him to take the game in his own hands. It is unanimous that if you are calling the shot, that we take that route. Without a doubt, that is the first option. You know, whenever you pull up, you know, routes on Apple Maps or Google Maps, it'll give you not one route, but two out, but three routes to take to your destination. The Bonza Drive is always smack dab the fastest and smoothest route. No detours, no construction zones. Of course, the objective is to get to our destination safely, smoothly, and quickly. There's no detours that would shake up the ride from AJ DeBonza for the Indiana Pacers. DeBonza has, in my opinion, he has the most potential in being one of the best talented and athletic players in the NBA for long ways to come. If we had to plant this sort of, like if we had to, working for NDOT, you know, whatever, working for the state, we had to post up a traffic cone just somewhere to give ourselves a detour. We had to set up a traffic cone for ourselves where, okay, we're going to weigh out the options at stake with the studs you have in the lineup on contract for next season. Of course, Tyrese Halliburton will make his long-awaited return to the lineup. Andrew Nembhard on the second year of his veteran extension. Nesmith playing out the final year of his current contract. Siakam that is locked in to be your starter. No ands, ifs, or buts about it. We're not orchestrating soap opera. And of course, Ivica Zubac. So, and the big question, this is where the traffic cone will come in. You draft a guy like AJ, you draft a guy like Cam. Is it really somebody? Let me scratch Cam off the board. Let me just circle and highlight AJ. Can we entertain that? Will Nesmith get shuffled from the starting rotation in favor of AJ DeBonza? Now, I don't want to be the one that's, you know, orchestrating a soap opera and saying this needs to be done. Nesmith has not done anything to deserve a demotion, especially after grinding his way into the starting rotation on two different occasions over the past few years. But say the Pacers, they get lucky and have locked in that first overall pick. AJ DeBonza, your selection. Even with a specimen of raw talent and athleticism in your hands, I still will not slide DeBonza in over Aaron Nesmith, at least not right away. He might outperform Aaron Nesmith sometimes, more often, but nobody, not on day one, not, the post 9 of the draft, not heading into the season opener, nobody lays a finger on AA. Not off the bat. If, AJ's style of play ends up being complementary with the bench, and, he might look solid enough to be a starter on your team, then the conversations then could get more uncomfortable afterwards. But again, that's for another time and place. That's for a different day. Moral of the story, DeBonza, Boozer, McGee, not JaVale. Pacers land great in the lottery, and we make the adjustments for the proper scheme fit. And I'll tell you what, I don't like being one of those, those Debbie Downers and the fine print readers that try to, burst the bubble when better days are ahead. Look, at this point in time, the Pacers just dropped against the Lakers last night. They really lost in the first half. They came back, made it a 7-point loss. You would think between the Pacers and the Lakers, it was a shootout. I want to say the final score was like 137 to 130. You would think it's a shootout. Pacers are, they're 15. I want to say 15 and now 57. It seems like such a brash time. And the pick is in jeopardy. Though with all the losses they just accumulated, 16 straight, the odds are in our favor. There could be better times ahead. Not saying it's going to happen, but we also... Come on. The Bonza, now let me say this. The Bonza, talking about the Debbie Downers, you might find, I don't know, Twitter, Reddit, oh, well, Devonta in this advanced stat category shows, he picks his nose with the right crevice of his index finger and not the left. He will not fit. Oh, Boozer might not do well in this league to his, his inconsistent outside scoring ability. And, granted, a strong suit is what makes him so powerful at Duke. But, what if that can't translate to the NBA? His floor is going to be a lot lower to not play well against other strong and complementary bigs. Guess what? There's a lot of, ifs about everything. There's a lot of what ifs. Ifs. Congrats. You can read numbers. So can I. You get what you get, and you don't throw a fit. There's really nothing to throw a fit about, of course, until, lottery comes around, and it's that 5 to 9 we're, fearing we don't get. But if it's a 1 through 4, granted, you won. You can't swing or miss on unless you are first. And you are that hesitant about taking AJ, which should there be any hesitancy? I mean, yeah, you may want to weigh out the options like we just said, and you want to trade down, even to 2. That might sound crazy to say, to get some good value and swap out of it. To where, okay, you have a little bit more comfort to pick Cam Boozer and have AJ Devonta go to another team. Nevertheless, whoever the Pacers select between 1 through 4, if the odds are in their favor, you can't swing and miss on that. There's so many ifs about everything. What if this just doesn't pan out? We don't know yet. Why are you complaining and why are you whining? Why am I whining? Why am I complaining? Because I'm complaining about you, the complainer. I'm whining about you, the whiner. Speaking of whining, Nat Newell at the Indy Star released an article, it was last Saturday afternoon, detailing the info of Miles Turner, giving the deets on not just why he left the Indiana Pacers, but he didn't tell anybody on the team. Not Tyrese, not Ben, not Nembhard, not Neesmith, not nobody. Miles hopped on a podcast as of recent, and he was asked, I believe it was hosted by Rodney McGruder. I know Kentavious Caldwell-Pope was on podcast. Apologies, I'm not too, locked in with the podcast. But he hopped on a podcast as of recent, and he was asked the inside scoop of why he made the decision in an offseason where he was certain to get the extension he desired and to remain with what could be a blossoming dynasty, potential dynasty, that is the Indiana Pacers. I'm not stretching that out, am I? No. Quote, prime of my career, prime money-making opportunity, end of quote. And I'll be honest, it seems a little, I might shape myself up to be a bit of an enemy and side with Miles here. But yes, he's not necessarily wrong. Through the 10 years he played with the Pacers beforehand, from 2015 all the way to 25, that was really the best year of his career. So we can collectively complain about how subpar he was and really still is on, crashing the glass and getting outplayed due to, less strength and less brute force in the post. He excelled eloquently well with Tyrese Halliburton in that screen and roll 2-man offense. Shot from a high and efficient clip from the top of the key. Solid perimeter shooter for a cat that was really a post player coming into the league. He was not versatile whatsoever. He's just stuck in as a dominant anchor big. And then, more years go by, especially like when Sabonis came in, he shifted more into that full finesse, stretch 5 big by the time contract talks were on the table. That is the key recipe for how this team plays is, excuse me, the longest suited at Indy and the culture. The franchise makes its first run to the finals for the first time in a quarter of a century. You should be destined to keep the gang together and wait out Tyrese's injury. Back to the quote. Well, I was told all year they'd go into the luxury tax. But Ty goes down in Game 7 with the torn Achilles, and they're singing and chirping a different tune. Now, End of quote. I'm not saying that this was the right thing to do, not on the side of Miles, but on the side of the front office. Getting the man's hopes up essentially all season just to reel the line. And before you start ragging on me, or you might start disagreeing with me, just hear me out. Getting the man's hopes up essentially all season just to kind of reel that line back, and you take his lip with the bait back on the dock. Now, what's interesting is Miles said his offer was, 3 years for $60 million, it's a heck of a contract. Yeah. And the Indy Star reported the offer was for 4 years and $95 million. So, I'll tell you what, these calculations and offers don't really matter now. He's no longer a player for the Pacers. He is a Milwaukee Buck, and he is for the next few seasons. Now we have Zubats. Back to quote. I couldn't tell Tyrese, Pascal, Obi, TJ, or, any of those guys that was really going on at the time because, one, it's basically a breach when you're in active negotiations. You're right, that is heavily forbidden. Two, I couldn't show my hand. If I tell them what was up, then all of a sudden they tell the front office like, oh, Miles, you've got this going on, and, that can mess up my whole free agency process. And mind you, this was my first time ever being a free agent. And not just a free agent, an unrestricted free agent where you have a lot more freedom to talk with other teams. And also when you're restricted, the Pacers have a chance, when you say Milwaukee offers in that contract, the Pacers have a chance to match that contract offer. And if the Pacers match the offer and nobody else puts in a bid, then Miles Turner will come back to the Indiana Pacers. It will not be a Buck. But that's in a different universe because he was unrestricted. And now back to quote. And I was going to take full advantage of that opportunity being an unrestricted free agent. So I had to cherish that opportunity to choose, and I was going to take full advantage of it. Miles, man, I am completely on your side with this. Indeed. He has the right to do such a thing. That's what Alec Pierce did, over the offseason before he signed the extension with the Colts. He was unrestricted. He went over and talked to other teams that would offer him maybe 30 plus million. He's got the right to do such a thing. It's his right as a player, and particularly as a free agent, as a part of the product. In Turner's introductory news conference with the Bucks, he said a quote, "I'm in a city now that wants to celebrate me." And that is a great quote. Go where you're celebrating. And I feel that is here. And what he said was, back to quote, there was comments that I said afterwards that people kind of took it and spun for their own narrative, whatnot. I'm saying I'm in a spot that is going to appreciate me now. Miles, we appreciated you. Maybe I'm getting a little bit too ahead of myself. Miles, we appreciated you. We really did. I mean, there were definitely times in the past, at least 2 or 3 times I can recall where I was like, man, Turner and Sabonis just isn't working out. We got to decide which one of them's going. Is it the guy that went from being an anchor big, turning in and meshing into a finesse stretch 5 big, a versatile big? Or will it be, the guy, then again, Turner gives you leeway on defense. But I look at Sabonis and it's like, man, he's great at scoring, playmaking, rebounding. I don't want to say the rippy stats, but, but he's not that great on defense. Eventually, Sabonis was traded for Tyrese. That's why Tyrese is here today. And Tyrese and Miles ran that little one too. Back to quote. I was talking about the front office. But the people in the city of Indianapolis took it on them like, oh, we appreciate you for years. The bleep are you talking about? Understandable, man. Have a nice day. Genuinely. So, yes, I will say, if you were promised that money and, digging into the tax in our front office backtracked, you had your foot in the door, they kicked it out and slammed it. Yeah, man, you have every right to be upset about that. If I got lowballed by my own bosses when I was told, hey, you're going to get X, Y, and Z, the X, Y, and Z were going to happen, and I don't get X, Y, and Z, I'm out of there, man. That makes you feel worthless. That makes you feel valueless. And that team picked me up when I slipped in the 2015 draft. Still takes me as valuable, but not $108 million per year with a player option type of valuable. So let me ask this. Did Miles turn the table on his own value with how his side of the conference finals and the finals panned out against OKC, or did the Pacers just lose sight of him? I mean, we can sit here, we can, ping pong those couple of questions back and forth and ultimately decide there is no winner on either side of the deal, but we can bring in a group huddle and we can collectively agree with, between you and I, you can insightfully say that, not bringing Miles back and not owing what he was worth was a bad business decision, and the executives are cheap, and why they will never win a Larry O'Brien trophy. Showing how Miles Turner has performed in his first season outside of Indy, that's dodging a major bullet. And I'm talking, Keanu Reeves in slow-mo contorting himself from getting hit by the pawns of Agent Smith in The Matrix. Any, reliability Miles Turner had at minimum being a rim defender has diminished from what it once was. He's not a terrible rim defender, but think back shades of, 5 years ago, Miles Turner. They had each and every time Miles Turner got a blocked shot, a backpack was donated to, I want to say it was IMCU. Turner's block up in Cambridge. No, that defensive energy, that rim presence, no longer there for Miles. It's there, just not as prominent as he once was. The ship is sinking. It's declining. He does not have that, another part of his game, he does not have that Howley effect with the Bucks point guard room, and they even have solid point guards. Rollins, KBJ, of course, Giannis. Giannis plays a whole lot of Giannis ball and excelling with, the pick and pop threes from the top. The thing is, you sit down and you do yourself the chore. I mean, sometimes you may have to, clip your eyes open to watch the Milwaukee Bucks basketball, especially this season, even though they still have some talented guys, but they don't win. They've been consistently getting chucked out by 30, at least, if it's not every night, it's every 2 games, 3 games. The Bucks will still space out that floor like what the Pacers did. The Bucks will still space out the floor to get Miles his outside shots. That is the one thing he's exceptionally well with, is shooting outside on the perimeter. Giannis is a ball handler. Out in transition, he's going to play the draw 2 game where I'm going to cut from the sideline, almost kind of swing into the elbow, draw 2, a wing like AJ Green. He's going to cut from, key to the paint. He's going to bring his man off of Miles' side of the wing. And he just has not had that smooth touch like he did in Indiana. Kevin Porter Jr. and, Giannis might run a high screen and roll. Miles just awaits on the wing for a kick out. Not so much off-ball activity like he was with Indy. And he shot, you look at his numbers, he shot decent from the top of the key, just not at the rate he was that previous season. It's not really his shooting that's abysmal and not making his $25 million per year deal, which is really $50, because remember, the Bucks had to waive and stretch Damian Lillard's contract. That is dead cap money. Dame's no longer on the Bucks. He's back home in Portland. Milwaukee is still paying him for the next 5 years about $22 million. So Turner is really worth $50 million. Just to kind of reiterate that, because it's something that needs to be said with how bad of a look this looks for Milwaukee. It's not just his shooting that's abysmal. There's times you might look at a Bucks game, you might look at the box score, you might watch highlights, and you're asking yourself, where's that $50 million per year player at? Did Miles Turner play tonight? It's his presence out on the court. He's downplayed into such a, do I want to say low activity player? For the money he's being owed, or for the money for the liability, respectfully, the liability he's been this season, not so much. And I want to trace back to the top of the key three-point shooting. That was one of my favorite things about Miles Turner here in Indy. Him and Ty would run that screen and roll, or, Turner would set Ty a high screen. He would draw 2 inside. Ty would kick it out to Turner, just wide open on that perimeter space, shoot it, good stroke, and he'd swish it. I said he hasn't shot horrifically from that exact, spot on the floor, but dude, when he misses those shots, it's Xbox Live offline. The pull-ups, inaccurate off the rim. He's been calling on glass. He has, recently a couple of games, he's had woes over the course of this calendar year with that shot. And I will say this, let me give him a little bit of praise. Playing in India a couple of weekends ago, he had a stride. Playing against Phoenix earlier this month, not the second game, but the first game. he had a stride. Otherwise, crickets. You're not getting the rebounding out of him, which is, expected with a few stretch and versatile bigs, and that should have been expected with Milwaukee and their fan base. It's not like Miles Turner is some, foreign territory. Like, no, the Pacers and the Bucks play in the same division. They met with each other in the playoffs on 2 separate occasions. They should know how Miles Turner plays basketball. They should know the scouting report for him. You should know Turner is not a strong rebounder, and he never has been. When he meshed into playing more of that stretch 5 versatile big role, the rebounding takes a hit. And it's more so spacing out the floor and getting open for shots. The impact on offense, especially applying in the wages, yes, that needs to be a power-up to counter their mid-rebounding talents. Turner's game has branched away from playing away from the basket, and his success stems with the sniping. He doesn't finish much at the rim. He's very high maintenance in getting good quality shots. So, and don't just hear it from me when I say it, but ESPN crafted a 1 through 10 list of some of the worst moves in the NBA the past, I want to say, not the past year, but at least the past 5 years, 10 years. I might be stretching now when I say decade, but sometime in a certain time span, modern. That the number one worst move was John Horst and friends crafting one of the worst NBA contracts of all time, the 4-year, $108 million, no trade kicker, and a player option. Just to deprive Miles Turner out of Indy since he had that bad taste in his mouth, and Indy didn't want to come through and, give him a negotiation. Even if Indy did, I don't know if Miles is going to take it or not. And I think that's what leaves a sour taste in the mouth of Pacers fans. And why he's kind of considered, I'm not saying he is, but from the community, from the fan base, going on, Kevin Durant lines, a snake. But the message to Milwaukee, you guys did it. Are you ready to stick with it? You don't have much of a choice. Shifting gears, what's new in the association? Shams. Yesterday, breaking news. The NBA's Board of Governors has approved a vote for the league to explore bids and applicants for expansion teams exclusively in Vegas and Seattle. A bidding process is expected to generate offers in the $7 to $10 billion range for each team. Of course, Adam Silver was playing as a puppet and getting a team to the gambling capital of America. Look at the trajectory of today. No, man, I'm just kidding. I know the Aces sell out plenty of games. The Golden Knights are doing pretty good over there in the NHL. Initial thoughts, I'll be honest, it's cool. Seattle, yeah, the Supersonics are coming back. I'm not really all giddy about it, but, yeah, sure. Seattle can get that side of their history back and away from the Oklahoma City Thunder, which I think a lot of people in Seattle would like. So let me adjust myself real quick. I'm going to be a bit of a hater on this. So an expansion seems, yes, it's great. It is great for the league. We get 2 more teams. Vegas is a good pool for money. They're a town that's growing, a city that's growing, excuse me. And Seattle gets a hardwood reincarnation. Now, if the expansion teams are set to debut, if everything goes through and, the bids are set and these 2 organizations are formed, they would debut in the 2028-29 season. But here's where I feel like this might get a little counterintuitive. Will the NBA get the tanking epidemic solved before we have 32 active teams? Right now we're looking at it. A third of the league doesn't even have the active talent to compete nor have the incentive to win games, and they're fine hovering, 10 through 15 in their conference or, hovering below play-in position for the sake of draft, for the sake of the lottery. Yeah, they're going to be swimming in the deep end. So if if they don't have the accessible talent to compete with, your Oklahoma City Thunder, your San Antonio Spurs, your Indiana Pacers, your New York Knicks, and then they're going to just hover around that play-in position or the mid-mark. Now, maybe somebody, and I'm all ears, I have an open mindset, somebody can definitely, enlighten me on this. If the clubs we have now, the teams we have now have that kind of low talent pool and they can't break over 500 to save their lives, let alone crack over, 25 to 30 wins, please, for the love of all things mighty, please tell me, how will this benefit the league being more competitive? I see it, and I'm not saying it's for the NBA, the league is not expanding for the sake of, money. I mean, I slid that little Vegas joke in there. No, I mean, I saw online, okay, why put a team in Vegas when you could put a team in, Pittsburgh, Kansas City? You could bring a team back to the Vancouver. You can have two Canadian teams. Am I missing one? Primarily that selection of cities. Pittsburgh, they prioritize their Steelers. I don't know about Basketball City. KC, KC's had at least one team there at one point in time, which I believe is now the Kings, the Kansas City Royals, now the Sacramento Kings. So, I mean, maybe you can try it again. But if some of these teams can't crack over 500 to save their lives, and let alone crack over being a 500 team, how will this benefit the league being more competitive? If anything, I feel like it's a little bit more counterintuitive. Seattle and Vegas will not break into the ranks for at least 3 to 4 seasons because their salary cap will be it won't be 100% of the league's base cap. It'll be about, I want to say 67%, 66%. Now, I'm curious to see what Adam Silver and Corp have in store for May when it comes to the new policies and procedures against tanking. So let me tell you how the expansion draft works. So the last time the NBA had an expansion draft was 2004, 22 years ago, which is when the Charlotte Bobcats, of course now the Hornets, expanded and became a team in the league. So how this works is existing teams in the NBA, so yes, the Pacers, for example, they were allowed to protect up to 8 players that were under contract for the next season from being selected by, X and Y, by the men's aces and the Supersonics. But past rules, I don't know if this will still apply. I'm assuming it still will, and more information will come out. Teams had to leave at least one player unprotected, even if that team had fewer than 8 players under contract heading into the offseason. So teams could also protect players who could become restricted free agents, but in the past, those rules did not transfer the free agent status to the expansion team. So the drafting team that was select a player that was a restricted free agent might just lose the player for the sake of nothing. But the player also could not re-sign with his former team. So say, I don't know, example, I don't know can't remember off the top of my head what Kevin Durant's contract looks like. Say he gets bidded, he's unprotected, he's a restricted free agent, he gets put on the bid into being a selection for the Seattle Supersonics. He's a restricted free agent. He decides, hey man, Seattle, cool, man. You guys picked me up back in 2007. We played one season together, even though you guys were tanking. Oh yeah, Sam Presti was still here. It's cool. I appreciate you guys picking me. I might want to go back to Houston. And if the rules still apply, then Kevin Durant cannot do that. Not saying he has to play with the Supersonics, but he can't go back to Houston. And what I mean by, okay, it's going to take about 3 or 4 years before the men's aces, what's a good team name? Men's aces, shufflers, the house, something gambling related, which won't slide through, and the Supersonics. Why it's going to take them at least 3-4 seasons was because, I'm going to read a quote. If an expansion team was entering the league for the 28-29 season, using that 66.6% figure, that team would be working with a salary cap of just under $122 million, compared with a projected $183 million cap for the league's 30 existing franchises. So the team would have 80% of the salary cap available in the following season and the full cap available for year 3. That's how the expansion rules work. But yeah, I mean, I brought up Debbie Downer once on the show. I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer. It's like, cool, 2 more teams can get in the league. There's more teams that have more cities that have, because the Vegas already hosts the Summer League. Seattle already has an arena. So, local taxpayers don't need to, pool in the money to, build up an arena, build up, sites or whatever. Everything's already set and done. That's perfect. But I'm mainly talking about the competitive side. And granted, this is it's 2026, so we have the 26, 27, 27, 28. So there's a couple more years to go. But I'm just a little curious myself. And, yeah, granted, I could be coming at you. I should be coming at you with the deets and the numbers and the details. But, I don't have that at the top of my arsenal. I'm just asking this question myself as a, a fan of the game, as a studier of the game. Hey, this expansion thing, that's cool, but if we're already, throwing a hissy fit about tanking, we're getting our pennies in a bunch about, a third of the league's not tanking when they don't have the incentive to win, then how do these two kind of mesh together and, they fit like a glove? I don't really understand that. Maybe, like I said, maybe somebody can answer my question. Maybe I might clip this portion, put it on the talk, and then I can have you, the people, tell me about it. Shifting gears, speaking of you, the people, my favorite little segment right here, the 6-man. So I went on the TikTok. It wasn't, not last night. It was last week. But since we didn't have a couple of shows on Wednesday and Thursday of last week, I'm taking the question I posted, like last Tuesday, and I'm broadcasting it today. I asked you, the people, on TikTok at Jake.Fessmeyer, who is your NBA MVP with just 3 weeks remaining in the regular season? 2.5, 3 weeks remaining in the regular season. I got some Shea. I got some Wemby. I got a couple Cade. I even got like a little Luka mention. Not a certain vote, but a Luka mention. Who else? Wemby, Cade, Shea, Jokic. So the first one I want to talk about. Can Shea Gilgeous-Alexander go for back-to-back MVP honors? Mar, little profile pic. This is a picture of you. I don't know what kind of landmark you're standing by, Mar, but Mar says, and he got quite a bit of recognition for this comment. He got 3 likes on it, including myself. So I might just expose my answer just a little bit. It's going to be either Shea or Wemby. All this talk, for Luka or Jokic or Cade is just cap. The only way I see anybody but those two winning is if they miss any more games. Mar, I'm going to butt in real quick. The MVP race might just ultimately be decided on who can play, who can hit that 65-game threshold. Now, at least seems like, besides Cade's sake, and we'll get to Cade, I don't want to jinx it. Nobody's really suffering any, long-term injuries like what Jokic did that might jeopardize it and keep him out for a month to where they can still get over 65 games. But back to Mar's quote. They're the top 2 teams in the West, talking about Shea, talking about the Thunder and the Spurs, putting up insane stats on both sides of the ball. Shea's shooting 55%, averaging 30. Wemby doing 25 and 12 with 3 blocks a night. And, let's be for real. Jokic is averaging a triple-double, and so is Luka. Now, Luka's like a 2-point downtick on his rebounds and his assists, but he's been on a heck of a run to up and up this month. That's nice and all, but, look, Shea and Wemby are quite literally the best two-way players at their position. Literally no other way to put it. Cade would be a close option too, considering what he's done for the Pistons. And I replied back and I said, with all due respect to my GOAT, Russell Westbrook, the triple-doubles became more so eye candy once Westbrook reignited the record books, of course, broke the Big O's triple-double record, won the 2016-17 MVP, which you can debate should have went to James Harden. But if it's not about creating wins, but if it's not that creating wins while you make the most impact for your team, then triple-doubles mean really nothing for value. And speaking of triple-doubles, we'll bring up Jokic here in just a minute. EJ says, Shea, and if Jokic does not hit the 65-game requirement, it is unanimous. Michael, user, a whole lot of numbers in K.unreleased. Michael says, is that a picture of Shea? No, it's not. Shea, because he has the most aura. Oh, for Pete's sake. User, he doesn't just say Shea, he says Shea. 5942-857-85385. Now, I'll give you your flowers, give you your respect, your full name respect. And we have K.unreleased. Kendrick, little nonchalant SGA. Folks. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, and if you did not figure it out last season and the season before that, he is one of the most pure scorers we've seen not just in today's game, but in NBA history. What? Over. Yes. Yes. Let's get a little uncomfortable, even though it shouldn't. One of the best pure scorers we've seen in the league's history. And what makes the man so dangerous and so lethal is how little he actually needs to get to his spots, how slippery he is, how dynamic he is, how smooth he is. This is not a player that relies on, the heavy pick and roll, the pick and pop. No, he's straight isolation. He's not a player that needs constant screening to operate with the ball. If Shai wants the ball at the top, one-on-one, he's going to break you down himself. We're talking about a guy who can take, I know the Thunder played the Magic, was it last week? He could take, your team's point of attack defender on the floor, like Jalen Suggs, and he can still create space with nothing. Footwork, hesitation, and control, and balance between legs, hesitation, step back. It is such a surgical procedure when it comes to Shai playing basketball. One of my favorite things, this has nothing to do with the MVP. I'm just praising how Shai plays basketball. I'm not saying I hate how the guy in the head of the dude plays ball. Is, yes, he has the stereotype of, being a flopper and, getting the Mickey Mouse whistle, and to, some extent that can very well be true, but dude, he just plays the game so smooth. When he gets your defender into a neutral stance, it's over. Or 1 foot not up on top, attacking. He's either getting downhill, pulling up from mid-range, where he has been one of the most efficient scorers in the league again and again and again, especially this season. But what makes Shai even more dangerous, even more lethal, is not just the isolation scoring. Look at how Oklahoma City manipulates the defense around him. You'll see a high ball screen, but it's not always to create a shot for the guy that's going to roll to the paint or pop out and stick along the three-point line like Miles Turner. It's to get that right defender switched onto him, to remove that primary stopper, to remove that POA. Let Shai attack the mismatch. Now it doesn't matter. It could be Suggs on him for the sake of Orlando. It can be Paolo on him. It could be Wendell Carter on him. For the Nuggets' sake, Jamal Murray. It does not matter who is going to be stepping out in front of Shai. He has so many moves up in his arsenal to create his own shots without screens, and he does it so well. It's like butter. He makes it look so easy. Even when defenses try to flood him, 2 or 3 bodies out in the paint, when he's playing that little draw 2, draw 3 game, he still plays so calm, plays with so much poise, control to locate shooters out on the perimeter and create offense for others. So, also stems back to this. So, the idea that Shai is not a playmaker, here's Jokic who, yes, look at Jokic's true shooting numbers and he's a better playmaker than Shai. Dude, that's not true. Yes, okay, welcome to this. In the league, you have different player archetypes, attributes, badges. Let me get into 2K a little bit. Players have their own strengths and weaknesses, and even if it's not a weakness, somebody might do it just a little bit better than them. So just because Jokic is a better playmaker than Shai, does that necessarily mean that Shai's a bad playmaker? No, that's just not true. He may not operate at that Nikola Jokic level. Nobody does in terms of passing volume, but within his role, within his system, he absolutely creates those opportunities. But make no mistake, the offense has been built for him to score, not just this season, last season when he won MVP, the season before that. And when he gets in this, takeover mode, lethal, we're talking about, him scoring out in transition, beating multiple defenders off the dribble, absorb contact, and still finish. He makes 39 on 50% shooting look so routine. Like I said, it's like a surgery. It's a surgical procedure. Combine that with the balance, the footwork, the ability to stay low and control the ball. Dude, Shai is something else. He is. He's one of the most creative scorers in the league today. And he's doing it at such an historical level. He beat Walt's record this season. Lots of records have been getting beat as of late. Of course, Bam with the 83 over Kobe. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander joined the company of Will Chamberlain for most consecutive 20-point games. Historic. Give the man his praise. And I'll go ahead and just give my answer a little bit early. Shai's my MVP. He's not confirmed just yet. Okay, no. We still have until the midpoint of April. Things might happen. Things might get uncomfortable to where I can change my answer. I'm just saying today, I agree with the folks that said SGA. Now, for folks like Van Miller up in my chat, can the Joker join the 4 MVP fair? Then you wrote up a whole entire book. So I guess gather around, grab your popcorn, grab your blankets, cuddle up on the couch, maybe some hot chocolate. I know it's getting a little bit warm with that, but dude, I mean, there's no way it's not going to get cold again. Van, now hey, if everybody had game requirements, Jokic is an easy lock. Shea has a better supporting cast while averaging less assists and boards. Van, you're getting a little too analytical on me, man. Only averages a couple more points than the Joker, too. I'm taking 3 more boards and 4 more assists over 4 more points total. He is the most talented center we have ever seen. Van, I agree with that. Definitely, I do. MVP-wise, let me keep reading. You don't see bigs with his court vision. He averages more points and boards than the MVP alien. We're talking about Wemby. Not to mention 7 more assists. Jokic has been robbed too many times already. I fear we may see it again. One of the most talented players ever. And I did make a little note, Van. I'm going to read it out. So, you got to know, talking about supporting cast. Shea's been cut from J-Dub, Jalen Williams, and Isaiah Hartenstein for, I don't have numbers off the top of my head, but quite a bit for a majority of this season. I'm not moved, back to what I'm saying, I'm not moved with, Shea not getting dishes when he's one of the best pure scorers and self-shot creators in the game while shooting over that 50% you mentioned as a guard. You reply back, Van, yes, but it's very hard to deny that Jokic's pieces haven't been playing to a high enough level, especially Cam Johnson, who was supposed to upgrade the team. I feel like management is limiting Jokic. I will say, Van, I'm going to cut in this real quick. I appreciate the little, chapter 1 and chapter 2 you sent me. When I said explain yourself in the chat, you actually thoroughly explained yourself and you stood on business. Round of applause, genuinely. But back to the quote. There is over $100 million locked up in money with Jokic and Murray. This is where it gets to a hot take. And in my opinion, can I talk? Yeah. And in my opinion, Murray is not cutting it. He is a fantastic player, but I feel if Jokic had players around him like Shea does, they have an amazing record. This is not taking away from Shea in his incredibly effective and efficient scoring. I am interested to see how much the Thunder can maintain the record once everyone... What just happened? My fault. Once everyone gets their contracts, or when everybody's contracts kick in. When Chet and J-Dub get bags, and there was no Hardenstein, and maybe no Caruso. Who knows? I'm curious to see if they maintain this record. I think if you put, Jokic and Murray on the Thunder, and Chet and Shea on the Nuggets, it'd be very similar. Shea is easily my number 2, though Luka has been a monster. Van, moral of my story, so it's just to reply back to that, we can trace back to general MVP chat. Jokic is not in my top 4, and it's insanity because he's tacking on triple doubles night after night. Last night, he almost went for a 20-20-20. But Shea has been the most prolific player all season. Yes, he's missed some time. So is Jokic. But it shows how uncontainable he continues to be. Luka's latest run has sparked him into the top 3 enough to the point where he's getting MVP chance out on the road. Wemby is the league's best two-way player. The numbers, and it might sound a little astonishing for me to say, numbers by themselves don't strictly move the needle. Now, Jokic has one, he even defied the odds. The Nuggets are 4th in the Western Conference right now, behind the Thunder at 1, the Spurs at 2 with Wemby, of course the Thunder with SGA, the Spurs with Wemby, and then 3 you have Luka with the Lakers, and then at 4 you have Jokic and the Nuggets. Jokic has won the MVP award before as a 6th seed. The same thing with Russell Westbrook. But I'm stern that not just where I'm saying, SGA will be a 2-time MVP. Jokic isn't in the top 3. And I'm not saying that out of spite, but even despite Jokic still having the numbers he has returning from the knee injury, and he has taken a little bit of that decline shooting-wise, not really playmaking-wise, but shooting-wise, that same shot, that same slump shot we've seen, over-the-shoulder shot, it just has not found the same butter and, crisp as it has in the past before the injury. Before the injury, he was definitely MVP. It was between he and Shea. But he goes out for a month. Even Shea was out during that time for 12 games with the strained abdominal muscles. So both those guys have been dealing with some adversity at some point in time. Shea came back from his injury. And granted, it's not a knee injury. Jokic is a big fella too. Shea's a little bit more, slippery, slim, crafty. So yes, they have two different body builds, body styles. But I will give Jokic praise. He may not be the MVP, even with the numbers he's putting up, still exceptionally well. And like I just said, there's still 2.5 weeks remaining here in the season. Things can get a little bit more uncomfy to where, hey man, the Nuggets are starting to roll a little bit. It's looking a little bit more unlikely because the Thunder have won 12 straight. They lost last night to Boston, so the winning streak snaps, but they just got done winning 12 straight. With Shea playing at a absurdly insane level like he has all season, could Jokic go on a run like what Luka's doing right now? He had 40 against the Pacers last night. Is that viewed a bad night? Though he's been slumping a little bit in that second half. He'll start out firing that first, second half rolls around, he gets in a slump. But he still managed to have 40. The 2 games before that, games, still had 30. With all due respect to Jokic, it's not just his year. I don't see him in my top 3. Things can still change. But are we going to take, Jokic coming back from his knee injury, finding a little slump, a little fork in the road when it comes to his three-point shooting, perimeter shooting. Everything else has been kind of fine. He's not the greatest defender, to put it respectfully. Shea's consistency, Luka's firepower, and Wemby's on-court presence have shuffled him out the top 3 like a deck of cards. That's how I feel about Jokic. And then, again, applaud to you for actually thoroughly explaining yourself, the numbers. He's doing, this better than Shea, and then you're taking his supporting cast. Shea has better supporting cast than, Jokic. Granted, the Nuggets were still winning quite a bit of games without Jokic. Same thing with OKC. And same thing, actually, we're going to talk about Cade next. Motor City MVP, Cade. We had a couple gentlemen here in the chat. We had Clifford the Big Red Dog said, when asked, who's your MVP? Explain yourself. Cade, if you didn't get hurt. We have Speedy Dan, a slice of pizza. Somebody's face. Doesn't even explain himself. He lets a picture do the talking. Cade, All-Star Game press conference, got the shades on, looking at the camera, asking questions. Yes. So, explanation enough. So, playoff-wise for the Pistons, yes, the motorcade will be refueled and sent out to play with a green light. The collapsed lung seems major, and I'm not trying to talk much about your guys' postseason. I'm mainly talking, postseason, yes. Awards, yes. Postseason itself, not so much. We can. A collapsed lung seems major, though the doctors did deem Cade's as mild, so for the sake of postseason awards, All-NBA, and of course MVP, that's unfortunately in jeopardy. Now, Shams did mention on First Take, either earlier this week or last week, that current Hawks guard CJ McCollum has dealt with a collapsed lung on 2 different occasions. One kept him out for up to 6 weeks, and the other one for a few. I will say this, with all due respect, Cade's not MVP, but he's for dang sure All-NBA first-team point guard. And I hate to see that privileged honor get jeopardized from a hustle play against Washington. Because if we want to talk to, I still got to get down to Wemby real quick, break it down, we're in the 2-minute warning, crunch time. If we want to talk about, flipping the script for a franchise, an organization, shades of Wemby, the Pistons were the association's worst team in 23-24. They won 14 games. And the season before that, it was 17. Though Cade played 12 games due to injury. Now they lie on top of their respective conference, led by an MVP candidate. And I talk about, when the Jokic is out for the Nuggets, they still went, I don't know. They're still at a winning record. The Thunder were 8-4. The Pistons were 8-2 without Cade. Granted, their schedule was a little bit cupcake to an extent. Jalen Duren held the floor absurdly well when Cade was out. Yes, we still in this debate that this team has this record when this player is out. The Thunder still have a winning record subtracting Shea. The Nuggets still have a winning record subtracting Jokic. The Lakers are 500 subtracting Luka. The Pistons are 8-2 without Cade. Who in the world in Motor City is holding the motor when Cade's off the track? Hey, man, they got a team like the Thunder, sort of like the Nuggets, although I take the Thunder a little bit more. But they have a team that's rich in depth that can operate on that plan B. So, now, I will say this. The only time I will promote any sort of motivation and give flowers to Pistons fans, the hindsight, the objective, and the task of hand for Cade Cunningham is to have him back in time for the playoffs. Your team's fun to watch, man. It really is. And not just being in the playoffs, being the number one seed in the East. Not 2, not 3, number 1. MVP, if he didn't get it already, it was going to be out the door. Cade was not the MVP either way. All-NBA, yes. Let's not get that twisted. All-NBA for certain. Not saying this out of spite. Not saying this like it wasn't a close race between he and the others in the top 5. There's 3 guys running away with that MVP honor. It's Shea, Wemby, and Luka. Shea, Wemby, Luka. Now, I will say this. When it comes to the postseason awards, here's the thing. I talk about the NBA having this, 65-game rule. When you play these 65 games, you must play 20 minutes to qualify for these awards, like the MVP. And this is what's kind of breaking my heart a little bit, where I can kind of resonate with you guys. All-NBA. We're not going to get Cade All-NBA. Now, I will say this. There is a 62-game threshold that exists for when these types of injuries happen. If they play 85% of their team's games before injury, then, okay, yes, you play at least 62. Or Cade needs to play at least 62 before he and his team can apply for the, what's it called, the season-ending grievance exemption. Well, I mean, if he comes back for the playoffs, I mean, that's tight, man. But because the thing about it is Cade missed it by 1 game. He played 61, and okay, I guess if we had to take back, he played 5 minutes in that game against Washington where he suffered the injury, then it would be 60. Yeah, that's tough. And it's a shame because, like Shea, Cade has thrived into such, growing each and every single year with an improving team, has thrived as such a pure point guard on not just the Western Conference's top gun, gold medal team, but the East. So, Cade's not a bad answer, but injuries have been rampant through star players, so unfortunately, Cade may not get that honor, and it's sad. It's sad to even think he might not get any honors at all. Quickly, Wemby. Speaking of, from rookie to MVP in just 3 seasons, now for Cade's sake, it's 5. But for Wemby, can he flip what they finished that first year? 14, 15, 16, 17 wins? Below 500 the next year? Second seed this year? Let me explain real quick. Bruce Wayne says it's Victor. Spurs were a bottom seed in the West just last season, and now they are second in the West. Just look at the number differentials between when Wemby is on the floor and when he's not. I agree. It's that simple. If not, I can make it even more simple. 3 words. Offense and defense. Well said. Evanescence, what's up, man? Wemby, because he's a factor on both offense and defense. Crazy. We have 2 people say that again. And I followed up by saying, yeah, he's a good two-way player, but is he the best two-way player? Follows up by saying, in my opinion, yes, he is. And then we have Colton down the bottom. Didn't explain himself, but he still gave me an answer, so I'll give him the props. I can't tell what your profile picture is, man. Is it you on the couch? Yeah, he just says, Wemby. Wemby has had such a stellar season. Folks, we are just witnessing the beginning of the wrath he can hold on the rest of the league. I can read out the stats. No, I'm just going to put that aside. I don't even have a stat sheet in front of me. I wouldn't even read it anyway. There is not a player this season that has had such an impact as a two-way player than Victor Wembanyama. He will stuff your big man's shot into the back of the rim or into the back of his noggin with the elite rim protection that's gotten so elevated and so timely that he can now execute the no-look block. Yeah, He'll stuff your big man shot, turn around the other end for a fast break, transition. He'll pull a deep three, or he digs into his dunk arsenal. 360, standing at what? 7'4", 7'5"? And the thing that might stop Wemby, like I said, he's 2 in the race. It's Shea 1, Wemby 2, Luka 3. The Spurs are just a single spot behind the OKC Thunder. Things can get a little bit uncomfortable, especially if the Thunder start dropping games like they did last night against Boston. Can this come to fruition where San Antonio can, climb, take baby steps to get up to 1, and then the Thunder are playing it at 2? Now, we can think about it. Is it going to happen realistically? Man, I don't know. I mean, the Thunder haven't really cut that many games this season. They had a little slump. What was it, like early to mid to late January? SGA is holding down that forward. He's not allowing anyone to breach. So if Wemby wants his odds in the minuses, wants his odds over Shea would need to have a quite literally an abysmal rough stretch of games, and the Thunder would need to at least drop a few during their, aggressive remaining schedule to par with the Spurs executing well on all cylinders. Personally, I don't see it. Truthfully. I'm going to say it one more time. Shea 1, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander 1, Victor Wembanyama 2, and Luka Doncic 3. Jokic shot the top 3? Yes. But he's still the 4th best player in the league, coming off a knee injury. Still 3-time MVP, but time is just not this year. Folks, 60 minutes until launch. Ball State Cardinals men's tennis is set to host the Toledo Rockets from the Ball State Ballpark Complex, just off McGalliard and Tillotson, here at 1 p.m. Stop by on your maybe your lunch break or during a break from classes. Beautiful day outside, genuinely. Before it gets back down to, 30 or 40. Go watch the Cardinals go toe-to-toe with the Rockets in an ever-so-lovely matchup. Over across the Mississippi River into Greater St. Louis, Ball State Cardinals men's volleyball hits the road to face off against the Lindenwood Lions. It's a little far away. Great news. That matchup will be served live courtesy of ESPN Plus at 8 o'clock p.m. Folks, that will do it for this Thursday edition of the March finale, of the Crossroads Playbook here on 91.3 WCRD. I warmly thank you once again for allowing me to have your ears and attention over this past hour. Once more, if you would like to catch a repeat for today's show, you can find that on Spotify, give or take the routine before 11:59 p.m. Be sure to run up the YouTube and TikTok at Jake.Fesmeyer. Once more, Fesmire, for more short form and bonus clips of today's show, bonus content, and other talking points, as well as this little experimental visual vodcast version of today's show on YouTube. Yippee. We'll be back in the studio next Wednesday to tip off the final round of live shows of the 2025-26 academic year. Man, it's already April. That'll be Wednesday, April 1st, 2026. Hope you have a great rest of your day and a lovely weekend. I'm Jake Fesmeyer, signing out here on 91.3 WCRD.